Welcome to Life Decoded.
The podcast where every conversation helps decode life, one perspective at a time.
Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to Beyond Destinations. I'm Grace.
And I'm Daniel. Thank you so much for joining us today. Whether you're listening while driving to work, taking a walk, or simply relaxing with a cup of coffee, we're really happy you're here.
Today's conversation is the very first episode of our brand new series, Mind and Emotions, a series where we'll explore the thoughts, the feelings, and the everyday moments that quietly shape our lives. Because sometimes the biggest questions in life don't have simple answers.
And today's question is one that every single person has asked at least once. Whether you're a student, a working professional, or even someone enjoying retirement, at some point, we've all wondered, what really makes us happy?
That's such an interesting question, Daniel. Because if I had asked myself this 5 years ago, my answer would probably have been completely different from what it is today. Honestly, I probably would have said, if I buy that new phone, I'll finally be happy. Or maybe, once I get that promotion, life will become so much better. At that time, happiness always felt like the next achievement.
And before we know it, we're so busy chasing what's next that we forget to appreciate what we already have.
You know, this reminds me of childhood. Can I ask you something?
Of course.
When you were around 10 years old, what was one simple thing that could instantly make your day?
That's an easy one. Summer vacations. The moment school announced the holidays, I felt like the happiest kid in the world. There was no homework on my mind, just excitement about spending time with family and friends.
I love that. For me, it was whenever my cousins came to visit. We'd spend the whole day playing games, arguing over silly things, and laughing again just a few minutes later. Looking back now, those ordinary days feel incredibly special.
Isn't that amazing? Back then, happiness didn't need a reason. A cricket bat, a bicycle ride in the evening, or even sharing an ice cream with friends was enough to make the entire day memorable.
Exactly. As children, we found joy in moments. We weren't thinking about salaries, success, or social media. Life felt much simpler.
But somewhere along the way, things changed. Responsibilities increased. Deadlines became normal. We started comparing ourselves with others. And slowly, life became more complicated than it needed to be.
So, here's a question. Do you think happiness changed? Or did we change?
That's a thoughtful question. Personally, I don't think happiness changed at all. I think our definition of happiness changed. As children, we valued experiences. As adults, we often measure happiness through
That's beautifully said, Daniel. And honestly, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having goals. Dreaming big, building a successful career, or wanting a better life are all wonderful ambitions. But maybe the mistake we make is believing that happiness only begins after we achieve those goals.
I think you're right. Sometimes we're so busy planning for tomorrow that we forget to appreciate what's happening today. We keep telling ourselves, I'll be happy once I get there, without realizing we're missing the little moments that already bring joy to our lives.
Exactly. And that's really what today's conversation is about. Is happiness something we achieve after reaching a milestone? Or is it something we learn to notice in the middle of our everyday lives? Because if we're always waiting for the next achievement, we might overlook the happiness that's already around us.
That's a powerful thought. Maybe happiness isn't a destination we eventually arrive at. Maybe it's the way we choose to experience the journey we're already on.
I love that perspective. So stay with us, because over the next few minutes, we're going to explore this question together. And who knows, by the end of today's conversation, you might discover that happiness has been much closer than you ever imagined.
Grace, can I ask you something? Have you ever achieved something that you had worked really hard for, but after a few days, life simply went back to normal?
Oh, absolutely. I still remember waiting for my first job offer. At that time, I was convinced that getting that job would solve all my worries. And when the offer finally came, I was overjoyed. I celebrated with my family, called my friends, and it felt like one of the happiest days of my life. But a few weeks later, work became routine. New responsibilities appeared, and I found myself chasing the next goal.
I think many of us have experienced that. Whether it's getting into our dream college, buying our first car, or receiving a promotion, the excitement is real, but it doesn't last forever. And that's completely normal.
Exactly. It doesn't mean those achievements aren't important. They absolutely are. But maybe achievements give us moments of happiness, while lasting happiness comes from something much deeper.
That reminds me of something I once read. Psychologists often talk about something called the hedonic treadmill. It simply means that human beings naturally get used to good things. A new phone feels exciting for a while. A salary increase feels amazing for a few months.
That's actually fascinating because we've all experienced it without realizing it. Think about the last time you bought something you really wanted. Maybe a watch, a laptop, or even your dream phone. For the first few days, you couldn't stop looking at it. But after some time, it simply became another part of your everyday life.
Exactly. And that's why buying more things doesn't automatically make us happier. It gives us excitement, but excitement and happiness aren't always the same thing.
I like that distinction. Excitement is often temporary. Happiness feels quieter. It's not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's just sitting with your family at dinner, laughing with an old friend, or watching the rain from your balcony with a cup of tea.
You know, I don't think we appreciate those moments enough. We're always waiting for birthdays, promotions, vacations, or big celebrations. But life isn't made up only of big moments. Most of it happens on ordinary Tuesdays.
That's such a beautiful way to put it. If we only allow ourselves to be happy during special occasions, we're missing hundreds of ordinary moments that are just as meaningful.
And maybe that's why children seem happier. They're not constantly thinking about what's next. They're completely present in whatever they're doing, whether it's playing a game, flying a kite, or simply eating their favorite ice cream.
You know, Daniel, when we started today's conversation, I thought we'd find one simple answer to the question, what makes us truly happy? But now I realize maybe happiness isn't one thing at all. For every person listening today, the answer could be completely different.
I agree. For someone, happiness might be spending time with family. For someone else, it could be achieving a dream they've worked towards for years. And for another person, it might simply be finding peace after a difficult phase in life.
Before we end today's conversation, we'd love to leave you with a small thought. When this episode finishes, don't rush to the next video or the next task. Take just 1 minute for yourself. Ask yourself, what made me smile today? It doesn't have to be something big. Maybe someone appreciated your work. Maybe you had a good meal with your family. Maybe a friend called you unexpectedly. Or maybe you're simply grateful for another day.
And we genuinely love to hear from you. Tell us in the comments, what is one simple thing that brings you happiness? It could be your morning coffee, watching the sunset, reading a book, or spending time with the people you love. There are no right or wrong answers, because happiness looks different for everyone.
In our next conversation from the Mind and Emotion series, we're going to talk about something almost every one of us experiences: overthinking. Why do we replay the same thoughts over and over again? Why do we worry about things that may never happen? And more importantly, how can we learn to quiet our minds? I have a feeling that's going to be a conversation many of us can relate to.
Until then, take a little time to appreciate the ordinary moments, because one day you might look back and realize they were the extraordinary ones.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us. We hope today's conversation gave you a moment to pause, reflect, and maybe even see happiness a little differently. We'll be back soon with another meaningful conversation. Until then, take care of yourself, take care of the people around you, and never stop appreciating the little moments that quietly make life beautiful. And remember, the happiest life isn't the one that has everything. It's the one that learns to appreciate everything it already has.